I'm Megan DeFord.
And I'm Richard Talafera.
We're both coaches, and we're teaming up to have the kind of conversations we have with our clients. The sometimes messy, always meaningful, what now questions we all face.
In each episode, we'll take on a question or challenge about work, purpose, and all the spaces in between.
Think of it like the show Frasier, but with less neuroses and more real-world coaching.
So let's dive in.
Richard, welcome to our flop era.
I've been in the flop era for a while now. So
No. We're out of, I think we're out of our flop eras, but everyone's had flop eras, right? Where you're just it's like, there's that Morton salt, when it rains, it pours. And you're just like, the hits keep coming and you're just like, oh my God, what is happening? It's like, it could be a really massive change you weren't expecting and you're down. It could be a series of things, but I think we've all gone through that season of our life.
Enough, like nothing's working. I'm like, it's safer for me to just like stay home, hide under the covers, maybe hide under the bed, and just let this, whatever storm that I'm going through right now just pass me by.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't live there forever, though. Like the flop era does eventually pass. Your Saturn return goes away, like all that stuff. And today we're talking about, how do you trust yourself after you go through one of these phases? And like, for a metaphor, like getting back on the horse. And how do you really regain that trust in yourself after it has knocked you off balance in a way that you haven't experienced before? And when we were talking about this and preparing for it, you brought up the concept of kintsugi, and I think that's how you pronounce it. But I'd love for you maybe to start there, and we can help people out.
Kintsugi is the Japanese art and philosophy of golden joinery, which is basically, if you have a teacup, a porcelain teacup or a china teacup that's broken, and what you do is you replace, you piece it back together with gold lacquer, and that crack now becomes part of the story. And we have a tendency to sort of suppress the bad things that happen in our life. And that's understandable as human beings that we do. But those bad things, those detours, those bad seasons, those flop eras are a part of our story. And rather than suppress them or sort of put them aside, we let them have their space and their era, their own era, and we don't hide from them. Like a good example for me is I've been wearing this gold chain around my neck for the past couple of years now, because I had twin tornadoes hit me in late 2023 between a layoff and a breakup. Boom, boom. Huge deal. Is things, just one of those things can knock you off course, but both happening at pretty much the same time. It's like, that's entering your flop era. Right. And so the bad things that happen to us aren't bad if we can just learn the lessons from them. That nothing is bad. It's just grist for the mill. And I think one thing that is sort of can be hard to do is, you're in a bad season and you have to tell yourself, remember that that season is not the entirety of your story. Right?
Yeah.
And so we have to, we can't avoid trouble, but we sort of have to sometimes sit with it, which is not comfortable at all.
Yeah. And what I love about this concept of kintsugi is it is giving value, very tangible value of gold, to the breakage, to the failure. And it's not hiding it. It's showcasing it. And there's lots of hard things about being a human, which I have said in therapy a lot, like it's hard being human.
Absolutely right.
And I want to articulate that. But one of the really hard things is that in order to grow, oftentimes it comes from failure. Failure is a part of our journey, and you're not going to escape it. And if you haven't had failure, you're not living big enough. Like, I'm just saying that. You must have
Yeah.
a really very, you know,
Mm,
safe life. Let's put it that way.
safe life.
Yeah. And I think that we've all gone through it and we've all had different failures, but what you're talking about is sort of, I like that you had twin tornadoes. Like when you have that hurricane and the hurricane has passed or the
Mm,
tornadoes have passed and you
mm,
look around and you're like, oh my God, like you're looking at this devastation. And so much of it is often tied to our identities. And oh,
yeah.
I was so confident going into this thing, or I was just
Mm,
living my life. I wasn't even thinking about my identity. And now I'm on the other side of this, whatever has happened. How do I move forward? And we're both runners. We've both
mhm.
had injuries before.
Yes.
And I tore my ACL playing rugby and I
Mm,
had it repaired and went through a year of rehab. It's terrible. I remember my coach looking at me and saying, the first hit's going to be the scariest. And you're like, yeah, but you have to
oh,
trust that the work
mhm,
that you've done is right. And I think with running, it's a little bit easier in terms of like maybe that first step, you're a little shaky and you're like, was that me
mhm.
or was that the injury? And
Was
kind of
that
figuring that out
yeah.
and really trusting yourself. So I think today, what would be helpful is to talk about the different ways that people can rebuild that self trust
Mhm.
for themselves in really tangible ways. And I'm looking down, I made some notes before this, but I think that comment you made of like, the chapter isn't the entire story,
It's not.
and really giving yourself permission to continue.
That's hard. That can be hard, especially
Yeah.
if you've gone through a devastating event. It's like, how do I continue on? And it
And the worry, is
yeah,
it going to happen again?
exactly,
That's the thing.
exactly.
Cause like like you said, you're
Mhm.
cozy in your bed and you got the covers up and you're like, okay, that was awful. But like you have to continue. You have to keep going.
You're a human being. You have to continue on. And there's absolutely no guarantee that that bad thing that happened won't happen again.
Yeah.
It probably will.
Mhm.
And life is not always about strawberries and cream and picket fences and rainbows. It can be about the hurricane, the tornado. And you can't be captured by the bad thing that happened to the point where you become inert, be, where you do nothing. You have to take some risk in life. And the question is, what are the ways to do that? How can you do that? And one thing in those I took, the one big thing was being in community with
Mhm.
people after a devastating event. And when I say community, a lot of people may think, hundreds of people being in a town square, but no, it doesn't have to be. Community can be as small as your best friend, your two best friends, and not allowing the thing that happened to you to eat you up inside. You know, having that community where you can talk to someone in a safe space and just getting it out there and not necessarily looking for answers, but just the activity of saying what you have to say can be very therapeutic. Yeah.
And what a gift you can give to your loved ones by being there and just listening and being
Yeah.
sitting with it with
Mhm.
someone else, having whether it's a small group of friends or just one other person, that knows you and loves you and has seen what has happened and is just sitting there with you. Like they're not running, they're not worried, there's no
Yeah.
judgment.
Mhm.
And I think as I was thinking about community, I was also thinking about like two different aspects of it.
Yeah.
Another one is actually be in massive community and let yourself feel joy again. Like whether that's going to the
Bingo.
club and dancing to
Mhm.
EDM or going to the
Mhm.
baseball game or,
Yeah.
whatever, like it's okay to feel joy. And sometimes the safest way
Mhm.
to do that is going to something where there's like a magnitude of that energy, right? Like The
Right.
farmer's market. Like, there's just like go somewhere where there's good vibes and you're surrounded by other people and give yourself that permission to feel that joy in a very low
Mhm.
stakes kind of way, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't have to be so vulnerable. You can
Mhm.
just enjoy it. And then the
Yeah.
other thing I was thinking about, and we've talked about this previously, but being in community and volunteering, like giving back and doing good in the world, I think starts to
Mhm.
rebuild that self-trust and reinforce like you have something to offer other people. You can
Yeah.
make this world in whatever way a better
Mhm.
place. And you're surrounded again with those good vibes, that good energy and like-minded people. They may know about what has happened in your life, but they may not, and most likely don't. And you're all there for one reason. And
Exactly.
that's a really positive thing. But I agree with you. I think community is huge. And, again, we're both runners.
Yeah.
So I think doing something fun for yourself, like running or whatever, again, in that community where you're getting out there and taking those baby steps of reclaiming a different
That's
narrative.
it. And I love the fact that he brought joy into this because if you've gone through a devastating breakup, divorce, layoff, you know, it's really hard to see any joy in that at all. But having the ability to get outside of yourself and, like you said, volunteer. There are plenty of places where you can spend an hour a week helping your community out. And in that regard, you see that there is still good in the world. And I think that's important when you've gone through a devastating event. If somebody's betrayed you,
Mhm.
there's
A death, an illness. I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
so
yeah,
life is
hard. And I think it's incumbent upon us, even in those dark moments, to go out and find the good in our communities, in our world, to remind us that it's always been there.
yeah.
It may not be loud, it may not be the baseball game.
Mhm.
It may just be, working in a soup kitchen,
Mhm.
feeding people. You know, you've done something good for yourself and you've done something good for other people. And
Yeah.
again, it's a reminder of that we all have a shared humanity, and we can't
100%.
lose that in the things that happen to us. It,
Yeah.
it can be kind of easy to, dive under the bed or hide in a closet, but at some point you've got to get out of the house.
Yeah. And you
And
gotta get out of your head. Like, that's the other thing I was gonna say is, like, being in community, and especially that joyfulness of community and finding that joy and meaning
mhm,
is getting out of your thoughts. And I think part of this process of trusting yourself is to stop ruminating and to stop rehashing, which is different than learning, right? Like,
yeah,
I do think you have
mhm,
to do an audit of, like, what the hell just happened,
yeah,
and what was my
yeah,
part in it, because
mhm,
at the end of the day, we're all the common denominator in our lives. But
true.
there's a big difference between learning from it and ruminating and rehashing
Mm,
that whatever happened, right? And
yep,
being able to step outside of those thoughts, I think is just so, so important. Like cut that record, the record scratch, like,
yeah,
and like
yeah,
you said, life is still going on. Even when whatever the thing was that was happening to you, there were
yeah.
still people who were volunteering. There was
Mhm.
still baseball games where dogs were eating hot dogs, like it just stopped for you for a moment. It
Yeah,
still exists out there and you can
mhm,
still participate in it.
exactly, and it doesn't feel good to hear this in the beginning, right after that devastating event, but you're not alone in the sense that the thing that happened to you is you're the only person who has suffered that
Right.
fate.
Right.
You have a tendency to be, I guess, narcissistic in that
Well,
way, but at the same time, again, going back to that shared humanity, other people have been through devastating circumstances,
mhm.
and you're not alone in that. And those people found a way to make it through. And guess what? So can you.
And I
You
think
know,
what
so
you're
can you.
talking about, yeah, I 100% agree. And it's important to be introspective. The only experience we know is our own, right?
Mhm.
And we've talked about this previously. Like, I find a lot of comfort in the humanities. Like, when I look at pictures or paintings from centuries ago, even, and you're like, wow, we're still doing the same thing. Or you're reading Odysseus and you're like, damn, humans haven't changed at all. Like, there's
Right.
something very comforting about that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have to honor your own experience because it is unique to you in that moment. But I think the other piece of this that sort of dovetails with it is getting rid of the self-criticism. Like, I think a lot of times we either think like, oh, I should be over this, or, oh, it's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
bad. I didn't die from whatever. I see this a lot in my clients and women where it's like they're putting down their experience, like almost judging themselves for having the feelings. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
no, it's
No.
okay. Like, it's one of those things where like comparing cancer. It's like, no, well, cancer sucks. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't, you
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Right.
so I think it is important to get rid of that self-criticism,
Yeah.
self-judgment
Mhm.
as you're healing through it. And
Mhm.
let's take the example of a baseball game. Can you tell, like, I really want to go to a baseball game?
I can
Um,
tell. I can tell.
it's that season, right? But
Mhm.
like, I don't even know if it is this season. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Sorry.
so I'm like, what season is it?
Yeah.
But when you're there, you can almost feel guilty about feeling okay. Or it's almost
Yeah.
like your self-flagellation of I
Mhm.
haven't suffered enough from this situation or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm. And you've got to be careful about that self-flagellation flipping into martyrdom.
What a point. Yeah.
And, you can't, you know, be carried out on your shield all the time,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't want people to be in victimhood and stay there because there's no growth there.
There's none.
There's
Yeah.
no growth there. It sounds like you are making a grand point when you tip into that martyrdom, but in reality, you're still in the same place.
Right.
You haven't moved, you haven't grown, you haven't evolved. And at some point, even your friends are going to go, okay,
It's
yeah,
like two extremes, right? It's either you don't grow at all and you're like, okay, whatever, and you come out unchanged. And it's like, well, that's not, you just went through
mhm,
something major.
yeah,
Or the opposite of like, you haven't grown at all and you're just living in that martyrdom of
mhm,
you haven't grown and you're just living in that space. And you hit the nail on the head. Like, you have to have that growth. Yeah.
yeah, that, and being in that martyrdom can feel safe
Mm.
in a weird way.
I
It's sort of
think it
like,
comes from criticism,
yeah,
right? It's like somehow you created this problem and now you have to suffer. And even if you
mhm,
did have a hand in whatever the suffering was, so
mhm,
what?
yeah, exactly. And so it's, again, it goes back to one of the things that we've talked about quite often, which is what is the story that you're telling yourself?
Yep.
And how do you know that story is true? And giving yourself the permission to tell a different chapter, to write a different chapter.
Mhm.
And we talked about just before we started about getting back on the horse.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, yes, the horse is scary. It might buck you again, but how are you going to know if you don't get on the horse?
Yeah. And I
And
think the other thing too is if you're going to live in the past of that experience, you
mhm,
owe it to yourself to live in the past of all your successes as well.
oh, that's good.
Right? So, like, if you're
That's
gonna do
good.
that, give yourself the credit that you also deserve.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
I'm a big believer in it. This took me a long time being present. Like, sometimes I like listen to neurologists and Eckhart Tolle, like philosophers about being in the present. And I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
think I'm smart enough to understand this. But what I figured out is,
I'm there with
you
you.
obviously you can't change the past.
Yeah,
The future doesn't exist. And
yeah.
in theory, kind of never exists if you think about it. But
Mhm.
I really view when I'm stuck on something in the past, the only way that I can change the past is by dealing with it differently in this moment. Like
There you
honoring it now and then moving forward. And that's certainly
Mhm.
a lot easier said than done. But it's like, do you want to live in this moment that cannot change? It happened.
Yeah. It's a
Or do you want to take it in and figure out like we all do that thing, right? Like that ruminating of like, oh, if only I did this, or only I said that, or
Mhm.
only this thing happened. It's like, okay, well, you actually have control over that now in a different sort of way. So let's take that and move it forward.
Yeah.
And really being so much more in the present moment, I think is critical, and figuring out what that means for you.
Yeah. I tend to be an introspective person and sometimes a little too much. And I've got to be on guard to not ruminate.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to because, a couple of years ago, I went through that. Yeah. Could I have
Yep.
done X better? Could I have done Y better? And at a certain point, you you come to the realization that you did everything you could with the information that you had at that time.
Yep. It's that
And
Maya Angelou quote, right?
Mhm.
When I knew better, I did better.
Did
Like,
better. Yep, exactly. And you use that information as a foundation for what comes next. All right. It's, you know, going into scenarios that feel scary. It's like it takes a certain amount of bravery and
mhm,
courage to, to ask somebody out after a devastating divorce. And it takes a certain amount of courage to walk into that interview, after you've been out of work for a while. And you have to tell yourself that it sounds cliche, it might sound a little woo, but the story you tell yourself in that situation is, I'm a brave and courageous human being. And it
well,
seems simple, but the execution of it can be a little difficult, and you can still do it.
what you're saying, you like really teed this up for me very well, because it's very much about embracing a new identity. And part of the reason, and this is like neuroscience, like part of the reason why you keep going back to the rubble and examining, because you're like, if I could just figure this out, if I could just solve this, I'm going
Mhm.
to prevent myself, as I am right now, from this ever happening again. And you are not going to solve your way out of this flop era. You have to build, you have to grow through it. You have to build literal new neural pathways. Your
Mhm.
brain is going to keep looking for evidence of whatever you're telling it.
Yep.
And, you know, we've all done this, right? Like you're excited about a new car and suddenly you see that car everywhere. That is your
Bingo.
brain confirming that bias.
Mhm.
And so if you keep telling yourself like, well, I was dumb, I did this, as you're going through with the microscope and or magnifying glass, that's what I was doing. You're actually reinforcing that narrative. You have to
Mhm.
give yourself small wins and a new identity within that growth, and literally reinforce it in your brain in
Mhm.
order to get out of this flop era and whatever
Yep.
this situation is. Because even when the devastating thing has happened and you're in the rubble will continue if you allow it.
Yeah.
And get help. I'm not saying you have to do this by yourself by any means, as we were talking about, but
Mhm.
you have to give yourself and your brain an understanding of what is important. So it will look for that and will help you step
Mhm.
into that.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that I do with myself and I do it with my clients a lot is talking about when you have a goal in this particular case, what would your future self do? Your
Okay.
future
Well,
self has already done it.
mhm.
Like, I'm trying time traveling a lot in this
That's
conversation, but
okay.
if your future self has already done it, how did she do it? Like embody
Yeah.
that version.
Mhm.
And it's so helpful because that future version isn't living in the rubble.
Exactly.
And it
Yeah.
literally is science. And I make it sound so easy. Just rewire your brain, but give yourself small wins to rewire your brain.
And give yourself grace too.
Yes.
I know it's like you're human. It's happened before. Unfortunately, it might happen again, but you have to be able to prove to yourself that you can do this.
Yeah.
And those small wins, just stacking those small wins is a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, as I like to say, trying to hit a 5-run home run, just hit singles. Just
Yes.
get on base.
Yes.
Get on base and keep moving around the base paths.
And as you start getting on base, you are now someone who can hit the ball, right? But you are someone who can hit the ball. You are someone who can move forward. And
Mhm.
again, you're training your brain because if you're always swinging for home runs, the chances are you're not going to hit them as often.
No, yeah.
And I often say this too, it's like every day, any day, in 2 minutes, you can do this. If you're listening to this, do it at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
Say, I'm back. It's over.
Mhm.
I'm back. Like
Yeah.
you get to decide when. It's not like there's some magical moment where like it turns. You get to decide when you are making that change.
Exactly. And it's not somebody else's timeline. It's not what people on social media might say.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's your timeline.
Yeah.
You get to decide. Of course, you have to move forward, but you get the power to be
Yeah.
able to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. You're the hero of your story. And it's just,
True.
it's that sort of thing where you get to
Mhm.
decide, like, oh, okay, that's done. And now we're moving on. I do think that, and this is all complex and working through it, like you said, it with others or a therapist or whomever is appropriate for you. It's really important because I do think there is a grief to letting parts of yourself go, even when the future or the present is
Mhm.
exciting, right? There is a grief of closing that chapter sometimes. So I think it's okay. And there's an understanding of, or allow yourself to have the understanding of like, this is complex. Like, even when you're in a much better positive mind space, thinking back and saying like, having a moment doesn't have to take you back in that moment, but you can still honor it and you can still honor your complex feelings.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing too is when that situation comes up again that was so devastating previously,
Mhm.
reminding yourself, I'm not that person anymore. I can handle this. I have tools in my toolbox
Yep.
and
Mhm.
I'm going to move through it. You don't have to drag yourself back to that person you were and that experience in particular. And honoring the fact that, like, yeah, this is giving me anxiety right now. Let me just sit with that for a minute
Bingo.
and
Yeah.
move through it. The more
Yeah.
we push that away, the worse it gets.
Yes.
Again, people have to decide what that means for them, but oftentimes when I start to feel something that's uncomfortable, I go into magnifying glass, solve it mode, and I'm like, actually, if
Yep.
you just sit with this discomfort for 90 seconds, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
Instead of
exactly.
giving 3 days of like red string on a cork board with it, and just
Right.
like honoring that for a minute. But you have fundamentally changed and you have shown to yourself, you can
Ex
trust yourself in this moment.
And you have to keep doing that. You have to keep proving to yourself that you can rebuild
Mhm.
yourself and you can trust yourself
Yeah.
because maybe that anxiety starts feeling a little overwhelming one day. Like you said, take a step back, give yourself 2 minutes. You acknowledge it rather than push it away, and then you move on.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you're sending a signal to your brain, I believe, that I'm not going to be captured by this. I'm going to acknowledge it.
Yeah. And just really quickly, if you're listening to this and you find yourself like, I cannot get out of it, get professional help because
Mhm. Absolutely.
there are methods, there are medications, there's all kinds of
Mhm.
things that can help you. You don't have to live that way.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in this situation and you sit with it for 2 minutes and you can move forward, that's who we're talking to right now. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe it's a day of just,
Mhm.
we all have bad days, right? Like, this isn't all rainbows and sunshine, but if you find yourself in a loop where you cannot get out of it, talk to somebody because there's so much help out there and you don't have to live that way. And I
Yeah.
think in all of this too, going back to your original Kitsugi concept, I joked to you, I was like, man, my whole life is going to be gold at this point. And I was like, but isn't that cool?
It is, yes, because you've lived, you've experienced things, some good, some not so good, and all of those cracks have gold lacquer in them, and
Mhm.
all of those cracks have a story. And rather than being shattered by it all, you built it back. And with the gold that you put in, that gold, therapy,
Mhm.
coaching, journaling, what have you, it builds it back stronger,
Yep.
I think.
Much more
And
resilient. Yes.
much that's a great word, resilience.
Yeah. Do you have any, this is totally off the cuff, but like, do you have any unconventional tips or methods that you've used that have helped you get out of a flop era?
Ooh, I nothing unconventional. It's just, I think it's sort of like I try to, you know, get knocked off the horse. I'm like, oh God, do I have to get back on this horse? Like, yeah, you do, because you got to make forward progress rather than trying to win the Kentucky Derby after you dropped off the horse. Just trot around the yard for a little bit and then start to ride a little bit faster and then start to compete for the Kentucky Derby if that's what you want to do. It's really my thing is trying to be brave, trying to be courageous, and trying to be consistent. And life will be life in sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know that life it will life at you, it's sort of like, okay, I know this is going to be a rough spot. I'm going to let the storm do its thing. You know, it's going to knock some stuff down. Then I'm going to be able to get up and keep going.
Mine isn't super unconventional. It's a little weird, but I will do things that I know I can do, like cook a really good meal,
Yeah.
or I'm going to go run 5 miles or whatever. And then I hype the shit out of myself. Like, oh my God, you crushed that dinner. Like, I always
Mhm.
try and think about myself in a movie and like, that's the hero journey. Like, yes, you
Yes.
did it. And like, the more you do that and that self confidence that you have, but like, I will do things that I will clean the bathroom and I'm like, look at this beautiful bathroom. You create a space for yourself that's so nice. And like,
Mhm.
that's the unconventional thing. Like, hype yourself
Mm.
up as much
Yes.
as possible about really simple things.
Mhm.
And like
Mhm.
you will start catching yourself in a positive loop. Like the other day, I caught myself in a positive moment where I walked out the door and I had forgotten something and I had to come back. I had
Mhm.
driven out and driven like maybe a minute. And I was like, oh, shoot, I got to go get it. And a previous version of myself would have been like, you're so dumb. Like you left this by the door. And instead, I was like, man, I'm so glad I remembered that. Good job, brain. And like I caught myself and I was like,
Nice.
that was a great
Yeah.
job. Giving yourself a good thought. But I will say it feels a little weird at first, but the more you do it for little things, that kind of stuff really
Mhm.
does kind of help you get out of this gloom and doom and martyrdom that
We all go through, we
time.
all deal with it. And
Yeah.
it again, and you pointed out so well, positive self-talk is
Mhm.
not a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
not woo-woo.
Yeah.
It does work, and got to be consistent with it. Even if you forget your keys, you can spin it around to make it a good thing.
Absolutely. I love it.
Right.
Well, I'm glad that we're done this flop era. And we are moving on and we're going to
Baseball games, we're going to cheer, we're going to have fun, and we're going to love being in joy.
yes, I love that. All right. I'll talk to you
All right.
next time.
Talk to you next time, Megan.